Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we talk about fiscal policy and economic stabilization in America. In the 1930s, with the United States reeling from the Great Depression, the government began to use fiscal policy not to just support itself or pursue social policies, but to promote overall economic growth and stability as well. Policy markets were influenced by John Maynard Keynes, an English economist who argued in the general theory of unemployment, interest, and money that the rampant joblessness of this time resulted from inadequate demand for goods and services. According to Keynes, people did not have enough money to buy everything the economy could produce, so prices fell and companies lost money or went bankrupt. Without government intervention, Keynes said, this could become a vicious cycle. As more companies went bankrupt, he argued more people would lose their job, making income fall further, and leading yet more companies to fail in frightening downward spiral. Keynes argued that government could halt the decline by increasing spending on its own or by cutting taxes. Either way, incomes would rise, people would spend more, and the economy could start growing again. If the government had to run up a deficit to achieve the purpose, so be it, Keynes said. In this view, the alternative, depending economic decline, would be worse. Keynes' ideas were only partially accepted during the 1930s, but the huge boom in military spending during World War II seems to confirm his theories. As government spending surged, people's income rose, factories again operated at full capacity, and the hardships of the Depression faded into memory. After the war, the economy continued to be fueled by pent-up demand from families who had deferred buying homes and starting families. By the 1960s, policy markets seemed wedded to Keynesian theories, but in retrospect, most Americans agree the governments then made a series of mistakes in the economy policy area that eventually led to a re-examination of fiscal policy. After enacting a tax cut in 1964 to stimulate economic growth and reduce unemployment, President Lyndon B. Johnson and Congress launched a series of expensive domestic spending programs designed to alleviate poverty. Johnson also increased military spending to pay for American involvement in the Vietnam War. These large government programs combined with strong consumer spending pushed the demand for goods and services beyond what the economy could produce. Wages and prices start rising. Soon rising wages and prices feed each other in every rising cycle. Such an overall increase in prices is known as inflation. Keynes had argued that during such period of excess demand, the government should reduce spending or raise taxes to alleviate inflation. But anti-inflation fiscal policies are difficult to say politically, and the government resisted shifting to them. Then, in the early 1970s, the nation was hit by a sharp rise in international oil and food prices. This posed an acute dilemma for policymakers. The conventional anti-inflation strategy would be to restrain demand by cutting federal spending or raising taxes. But this would have drained income from an economy already suffering from higher oil prices. The result would have been a sharp rise in unemployment. If policymakers choose to counter the loss of income caused by rising oil prices, however, they would have had to increase spending or cut taxes, since neither policy could increase the supply of oil or food. However, boosting demand without changing supply would merely mean higher prices. President Jimmy Carter sought to resolve the dilemma with a two-pronged strategy. He geared fiscal policy toward fighting unemployment, allowing the federal deficit to swell and establishing counter-cyclical job programs for unemployed. To fight inflation, he established a program of voluntary wage and price controls. Neither element of the strategy worked well. By the end of the 1970s, the nation suffered both high unemployment and high inflation. While many Americans saw this stagflation as evidence that Keynesian economics didn't work. Another factor further reduced the government ability to use fiscal policy to manage the economy. Deficit now seems to be a permanent part of the fiscal theme. Deficit had emerged as a concern during segment of 1970s. In the 1980s, they grew further as President Ronald Reagan pushed a program of tax cuts and increased military spending. By 1986, the deficit had swelled to $221,000 million, or more than 22% of total federal spending. Now, even the government wanted to pursue spending or tax policies to bolster demand. The deficit made such a strategy unthinkable. Beginning in the late 1980s, reducing the deficit became the predominant goal of fiscal policy. With foreign trade opportunities expanding rapidly and technology spinning off new products, there seemed to be little need for government policies to stimulate growth. Instead, officially argued, a lower deficit would have reduced government borrowing and help bring down interest rate, making it easier for business to secure capital to finance expansion. The government budget finally turned to surplus in 1998. This led to calls for new tax cuts, but some of the enthusiasm for lower taxes was tempered by the realization that the government would have faced major budget changes early in the new country, and the enormous post-war baby boom generation reached retirement and started collecting retirement checks from the social security system and medical benefits from the Medicare program. By late 1990s, policymakers were far less likely than their predecessors to use fiscal policy to achieve board economic goals. Instead, they focused on narrower policy change designed to strengthen the economy of the emergence. President Reagan and his successor, George Bush, sought to reduce taxes on capital gains. That it increased in wealth resulting from the appreciation in the value of assets such as property or stocks. They said such a change would increase incentives to save and invest. Democrats resisted, arguing that such a change would overwhelmingly benefit the rich. But as the budget deficit shrank, President Clinton authorized and the maximum capital gains rate was trimmed to 20% from 28% in 1996. Clinton, meanwhile, was sought to affect the economy by promoting various education and job training programs designed to develop highly skilled and hence more productive and competitive labor force. While budget remained enormously important, the job of managing the overall economy shifted substantially from fiscal policy to monetary policy during the later years of the 20th century. Monetary policy is the province of Federal Reserve System, an independent U.S. government agency. The Fed, as it's commonly known, includes 12 regional Federal Reserve banks and 25 Federal Reserve Bank branches. All nationally chartered commercial banks are required by law to be members of Federal Reserve System. Membership is optional for state chartered banks. In general, a bank that is member of Federal Reserve System uses the Reserve Bank in its region in the same way that a person uses bank in their community. So that was about fiscal policy and economic stabilization in American economy. Thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Bye.